So now we want to move on to topic 3. Okay. So topic 3, the key purpose of this topic is to talk about retirement. Okay. So as I mentioned, the module, right, we're talking about other life insurance concepts. And we've already mentioned, right, with group life, we did the Venn diagram, but now we want to move on to retirement concepts. And this is a important concept on the exam, right? We have qualified plans, we have non-qualified plans, and we want to be aware of the taxation policies involved in both of them as well. So just like when we looked at taxation with individual and group life, we want to apply this to retirement too, right? We want to apply taxation policies also to retirement. So let's start off by looking at what are qualified plans. What are qualified plans? So qualified plans meet the requirement of the IRC, or the Internal Revenue Code, and are eligible for favorable tax treatment. So they're designed to provide retirement benefits in a tax-advantaged manner. So what this means is that we can see that the earnings on contributions grow tax-deferred until withdrawal, right? So if we have a retirement plan, and there can be growth, right? And so the earnings grow tax-deferred until it's withdrawn, right? Until the benefits are paid out. And we can see that contributions are often made with pre-tax dollars, right? So reducing the taxable income for the year. So if you have a annual income, right, of $100,000, but then you make a 20,000, right, contribution to your retirement plan, right, then your taxable income will only be 80,000, right? And so in that way, we can see that your taxable income would be reduced. And we're welcome to go back to the other topic where I kind of gave you that taxation, right, chart that helps you to visualize, right? We have that taxable income equals the gross income minus any deductibles, right? Or exemptions. So an exemption would be, right, these pre-tax contributions, right, that we make into our qualified retirement plans. Okay, so when we talk about qualified plans, the main thing we want to look at is it has tax-deferred growth, right? And that we can contribute them using pre-tax dollars. And another term that we can use is called deferred contributions, right? So those pre-tax dollars are not taxed, not counted towards our taxable income. So this is a list of all of the retirement plans that are qualified retirement plans that exist, right? And so on the exam, we have some key retirement plans that we really want to zone in and focus on, especially with the 401k plans, with our IRA plans, and some other plans that we'll take a look at. So let's first look at the IRA, the individual retirement account. And this is one that for most individuals, it's really familiar to them. So the IRA is a tax-advantaged savings account designed to help individuals save for retirement, right? So it's a savings account and it's tax-advantaged. Why? Because it's a qualified plan. So there's two types of IRAs. There's first a traditional IRA. And there's the Roth IRA. So what the traditional IRAs, contributions to the traditional IRAs may be tax deductible, right? And the investments grow tax deferred until withdrawn in retirement, at which point withdrawals are taxed as ordinary income, right? So we know that like contributions are tax deductible, right? The investments grow tax deferred, but when it's withdrawn, right, it's taxed as ordinary income. Now with Roth IRAs, it can be a little bit tricky. it says here that contributions are made with after-tax dollars. That means contributions are not tax deductible, right? But the qualified withdrawals are tax-free. So it can be a little confusing to students because we see that the taxation policies for traditional IRA are flipped with regard to the Roth IRA, right? But still, we want to keep in mind that these are qualified plans, okay? IRAs are qualified plans, and there are some tax advantages. The Roth IRA is just in terms of a kind of like deception in terms of how it's set up with taxation, but do know that withdrawals are tax-free, right? Withdrawals are tax-free, right? Even though the contributions are with after-tax dollars and not pre-tax dollars, right? So just keep that in mind as we move forward. So now let's take a look at our second qualified plan that we want to focus on, which is our TSA, tax sheltered annuity, or the 403(b) plan. So this is a retirement savings plan, right? That's available to employees of public schools, certain nonprofit organizations, and some ministers, right? So with this one, we want to take a look at the audience, right? So who or to whom are these plans available to or available for, right? And so with the IRAs, right, they can be for really any individual who wishes to save, right, for retirement. But with these tax sheltered annuities, these are specific retirement plans to these specific individuals. So let's take a look at our taxation policy. So contributions are made with the pre-tax dollar, okay. Lowering taxable income, perfect. And funds grow until tax deferred until withdrawal. Yeah. And so just like a 401(k) plan, which we'll talk about in a moment, and an IRA, right, a traditional IRA, right, we know that withdrawals in retirement are taxed as ordinary income, right? So we see that just like our traditional IRA that we've just talked about, that we can, it can be taxed as, it's taxed as ordinary income. So now let's take a look at the co-plans, the HR10 plans. Now, these are retirement plans for self-employed individuals and unincorporated business. So again, we can take a look at, right, who these plans are for, right? Because that's very important, right? Who are these plans for? We can look at the taxation policies again, and so we see that they offer tax deferred growth, right? Now, one exception is that they do allow for higher contributions to IRAs, right? Which can make them attractive for high income self-employed individuals, right? So again, remember that one of the target audiences of this is self-employed individuals. And so when we take a look at that, we have it being more attractive for these individuals, right? Because they can contribute more, okay? They contribute more. Now, when we look at the next type of plan, which is our SEP, or the Self-Employed Pension Plan, this is another retirement plan designed for self-employed individuals and small business owners. Now, the employer makes all the contributions, or the self-employed individual makes all the contributions, which are tax deductible, right, as usual. And the funds grow tax deferred until withdrawal. Okay. Now, with SEPs, they're usually easier to set up and administer, making them a more popular choice, right, for many individuals. Now, you might be wondering, what are the differences between these two plans, right? What are the differences between these two plans? So now we can go take a look at that right here. So with the SEPs, right, as I mentioned, they're easier to set up, right? They're easier to manage, right? And so they're often more popular for small businesses, self-employed individuals, okay? Now with the co-plans, right, they allow for higher contribution limits than SEPs, right? So if we have, as I mentioned, these higher income individuals, then they might prefer these plans more than SEPs because you can contribute more. They allow for higher contributions. Okay. And then one of our last major qualified plans that we want to talk about is our 401k plans, right? So these are also very common throughout in all industries, really, right? When we talk about providing insurance coverage for individuals, right, for the employees. So 401k plans is employer-sponsored retirement savings account. So one of the key things I want to know, it's employer-sponsored. It's employer-sponsored, okay? And it allows employees to contribute a portion of their salary on a pre-tax basis, reducing the taxable income for the year, right? So kind of the same thing, right? Where you contributing to the pre-tax basis, but because it's employer-sponsored, right, it allows employees to contribute a portion of their salary. Okay. Still, funds grow tax deferred, right? And withdrawals are taxed over their income, right? Just like the typical taxation policies when we talk about qualified plans. Okay. And so participants can also choose from a range of investment options. So that's also a benefit, especially when we talk about 401k plans, investment can be an option. All right. So those were the major qualified plans did want to talk about. But again, just remember that there's many qualified plans out there. Okay, there are many qualified plans out there. So now let's take a look at non-qualified plans, and hopefully we can kind of guess what it means in which it loses its tax treatment. So why? Well, let's take a look at first the IRC, right? Look at the Internal Revenue Code. So the Internal Revenue Code, there's requirements, right, that have to be met by these plans in order to receive favorable tax treatment. But non-qualified plans, they do not meet those requirements, right? They do not. So they do not receive favorable tax treatment, and because it only covers highly compensated individuals, right? So there are certain regulations, right? If you're interested, you can look into it on the requirements. But we do want to know that although, right, with non-qualified plans, earnings grow on a tax-deferred basis, just like qualified plans, but contributions are made on a pre-tax, right, after-tax basis. All right, so after-tax dollars. So we can see that it loses that favorable tax treatment of, utilizing pre-tax dollars, right, reducing total taxable income, right? It loses that benefit. Okay, so let's look at two major examples. We first have deferred compensation. And so this is where an executive benefit is an executive benefit which an employer can use to pay highly paid employees at a later date, such as upon disability, retirement, or death, right? So we kind of think of the term itself when we talk about deferred compensation, right? We're deferring the compensation until a later date. Right? We also have the split dollar plan, and this is where the employer and employee share the cost of purchasing a life insurance policy on the employee. Okay, so we can think about the term split dollar, right? We have that split in the costs that are involved between the employer and the employee. Okay, so this also divides ownership, right? It also would divide benefits as well. Okay, so those are the two major non-qualified plans that I do wanted to look at. But again, there are also other non-qualified plans out there as well. Okay. All right. So now let's take a look at reviewing through these concepts here and taking a look at these questions pertaining to, right, when we talk about the taxation, we talk about retirement plans. Okay. And there's also some review questions in here with the previous topics, okay, as we kind of wrap up this module. So feel free to take a moment to look through these questions, and then we'll go through them shortly. All right, so now let's take a look at question 1. So which of the following is a retirement plan that is tax qualified? So when we take a look at this, we're just going to go back to really just remembering what are the tax qualified plans and what are not. Okay, so it really comes down to really just knowing, right, what are some of the major qualified and what are some of the major non-qualified retirement plans. All right. So let's first take a look at the key person plan here. We know that is a business related life insurance plan, right? So that is not a retirement plan. So please don't get those confused. This is a business specific, right? Life insurance plan, right? That can cover a group of important individuals, right? Or just one specific individual, right? Remember, these are not retirement plans. Defined contribution. Well, yeah, right. That would be a tax qualified plan, right? We took a look at that and we mentioned, right, how these types of tax qualified plans provide one with pre-tax contributions and a reduction in taxable income. We know C is not right because deferred compensation is an example of a non-tax qualified plan. And D, a split dollar life insurance, remember that is also a non-qualified plan. Okay. Now let's take a look at question 2. So federal income tax laws generally treat proceeds of life insurance policies as what? Well, let's take a look. Well, these are proceeds of life insurance policies. So proceeds refer to death benefits, right? Those are proceeds. That's what it refers to, right? So do they treat death benefits of individual life policies as what? Well, those are non-taxable, right? Because remember, we've talked about in the previous topics that with the death benefits, right, they're not taxable to the beneficiaries, right? They're not taxable to the beneficiaries. Okay. All right. So I have some other questions here, and remember there's some review questions that are mixed from the other topics as well. So go ahead and take a moment to answer these, and then we'll go over them shortly. All right, so let's take a look at question 3. So which of the following group life policies require 75% of the eligible members to participate? So remember with this one here, it would be a contributory plan, right? And the definition of this is that that the employees, right, contribute to paying the premiums, right? So that's what it means by contributory, and it requires at least 75% of the eligible members to participate. Right. Look at question 4. An employer can deduct premium payments as an ordinary business expense for which of the following life coverages? So remember, this would be with group policies, because in that case, we have the ability for the employer, right, who are paying the premiums to count those premium payments as ordinary business expenses. Right? So, we look at it. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about some key points. And I do want to wrap up this module with talking about this because it is important to go through this again and really zone in your focus on what places that you might need to review a little more, especially when we talk about piloting things we've looked at, starting from the types of policies, right? The general contract procedures, underwriting procedures, all the way to what we're doing now. So remember, we've talked about the types of policies, and you need to be familiar with the traditional whole life policies. You want to be familiar with the interest sensitive policies as well, right? Especially with cash value and how cash value grows. And we often looked at term policies, right? Or term life. We looked at the types of term life. And we've also looked at the specific features as well. We also take a look at annuities, right? So they protect against the risk of living too long, right? So we can see that playing a role there. And we also have specific combination plans, right? So we looked at that as well, right? We've looked at joint life, which is first to die, and survivorship life, which is like second to die, right? And we've looked at how benefits are paid out according to those designations. We also take a look at the policy riders, the provisions, options, and exclusions. So with the policy riders, we took a look at all of this here, right? All of these riders, and remember, riders are essentially add-ons, right? They're add-ons to the policy, right? To provide one with extra coverage for a temporary amount of time, or for an entirety of the contract, right? And we also talked about a lot of the provisions, right? So we have 17 major provisions here, starting from the entire contract provision. We talked about all the way to the accelerated death benefits provision. And we looked at how these do take up a big part of the exam, right? Because they were important in terms of, okay, what are the specific policies listed in the contracts, right? How are the business beneficiary designated? How do policy loans work, right? How are premiums payments made? Okay. And then we looked at 3 exclusions, right? War, aviation, and dangerous occupation, right? They can be excluded, right? Death from these events can be excluded because of the risk, right? The high risk involved. And then just today, we took a look at retirement and other concepts, right? So we have the third-party ownership, and we looked at life settlements, group life insurance, right? In terms of the conversion privilege and contributory vs. non-contributory plans. Okay. Look at retirement plan, right? So we have that section retirement. We also looked at life insurance, especially when we look at business insurance needs, right? And remember, with business insurance needs here, there are specific health insurance policies that we'll take a look at that as well, that also are really similar to key person and buy sell. And we also have individual life, group life, and modified endowment contracts, and their corresponding tax treatments too. Okay. And do you know that with Social Security benefits, just take a look at that with one of the other modules, I believe it's module 7. And that one we go in a little bit more in depth when we talk about Social Security and the rules.